Shalom, Kal Halalim Lai Hawa Bashim Yahushai, Bahashim Racha HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles of GMS, who rule well, who I learned this truth from, and salutations and blessings to the elect. Alright, this lesson is going to deal with a bit more history. I came across this week, I was reading through it, and I'm going to start off with Revelation 13 and 1. Right, this is for the newer brothers. When they come across history, just know that we have to correlate it with the scriptures, right? Because history is, at one point, prophecy was written down as history, by the prophets, so to speak. The prophets wrote it down, and then after a certain time period, it would happen. So the Bible is a book of prophecy, history, right? Laws, statutes, right? A book of order, right? So this is Revelation 13 and 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And this beast is referring to nations, all right? Pursuant to the book of Ecclesiastes 3 and 15 or 20, I believe, where it mentions all the people are as beasts, right? The nations are as beasts before thee, right? And this particular beast having the 7 heads, those heads, and each head represents a kingdom, right? Each head represents a kingdom. 10 horns, which represents a horn represents power, and that also represents kingdoms, all right? In today's modern world, that represents the 7 heads is NATO, all right, and the 10 horns are the 10 original Commonwealth nations of Europe, or the European Union, Slovakia, the Commonwealth nations of Europe, right? Originally there was 10, and then different countries split up and whatnot, but even the 7 heads, originally it was 7. You got different countries that sprung up, so to speak. It says, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, right? So this particular beast, right, the leopard, dealing with the leopard is talking about the Greeks, starting with you had Philip, and then his son Alexander, the so-called great, or the creep, right? He wore a leopard skin hat, actually, in the history, right? But that leopard represents the Greeks, and that's the first thing he saw, because that was the first great kingdom of the Edomites, right? That was the first, as Esau says, that was the foundation of Western civilization, right? The Greek Empire. It says, and his feet were as the feet of a bear. Your feet represent your end. So that's the Russians. That's the end of this beast, this kingdom. It's going to burn it with fire, right? And his mouth is the mouth of a lion, which goes into the British, because America really is still owned by Britain, along with Canada. Canada calls itself Crown Land, along with New Zealand and Australia. But the laws, basically all the laws, they all come from where? Britain. Because even when you go for your bar exam in the States, right, that's what they call it, when you study the law and you want to pass your bar, you want to become a licensed attorney. Bar stands for, I believe, British accreditation, or accredited registry or registration. And that goes back to the old laws of Britain, which, where did Britain get its laws from? Basically, it goes back to the dragon, the Latin, right? The Roman Empire. Because Jake took over the Roman Empire and it was called Holy Roman Empire, but they still took on Latin and the laws. And then you had Jake make certain things like the Magnus Carta, what was it called? The Magnus Carta, something like that, during the medieval times, right? But that's just for the point of the British as the mouth. And the dragon gave him his power, which the dragon first and foremost is Satan, and it goes into as well as the Roman Empire, because this American empire, this kingdom, is based off the Roman Empire, right? That's their foundation, the Greco-Roman Empire kingdom, right? And his seat and his great authority. And verse 3 is the point. And I saw one of his heads as they were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And that time of the deadly wound, or the one of the heads being wounded deadly, was first and foremost with Septimius Severus and other emperors such as Pesinius Niger. All right, and you had emperors before that were Israelites, Marcus Aurelius, and his son bugged out son Commodus. All right, but Septimius Severus, he was fighting, I believe, two other generals, right? Pesinius Niger and I forget the other one. And that time period really fulfilled during the time of the wound, of the deadly wound during the time of Constantine, right? During the Council of Nicaea, 325 AD. You know, so that's what that goes into. So I'm gonna go into the images I have saved for the lesson, and this is coming from hold on one sec, a website, right? It's a website called realhistorywww.com, and that site, Real History WW, is a good site. There's a lot of dense history material, and he does go off on some things, but if you want to get some good info on, you know, medieval times and even so-called Israelites in China and Japan, or them being dark-skinned, you know, originally, you can go to that site. So I'm going to start off with here. This is subtitled The Slavs, right? You'll hear that term Slav or Slavic quite often. According to the Eastern Homeland Theory, prior to becoming known to the Roman world, Slavic-speaking tribes were part of the many multi-ethnic confederacies of Eurasia, such as the Sarmatian, Hun, and Gothic empires. The Slavs emerged from obscurity when the westward movement of Germans in the 5th and 6th centuries AD, thought to be in conjunction with the movement of peoples from Siberia and Eastern Europe, the Huns, and later the Avars and Bulgars, started the great migration of the Slavs, who settled the lands abandoned by Germanic tribes fleeing the Huns and their allies. Now, this dude that I believe it's a Jake, right? He's been holding this site for a long time, and you know, he's been getting a lot of criticism and a lot of catching a lot of shit for this site. But he goes off on the point where I believe he deems all the Germanic tribes as albinos, and I believe he subscribes to the theory that they originated in the north, and that Esau's the way he looks because he's from the north, which is not the case. Esau's actually a Middle Eastern desert people, right? He was just cursed with the curse of leprosy, lack of pigment, right? Being red. But interesting to know for brothers, what did it say? It said that the Slavs, what does the word Slav mean? Slav, that's where you get the word slave. So the Slavic people, they emerged from the 5th and 6th century. That's 400 and 500 AD. Basically, after Septimius Severus, 193 AD, a couple centuries, right? They were driven in the cliffs, and then what happened? They emerged, right? They were bugged out. They were Slavs, right? Jake took them as slaves, but a lot of Jakes dealt with them and taught them things as well, and that was part of our downfall. So that's just interesting to know the time period that's spot on. I'm going to jump down. It says down here, it says around the 6th century, Slavs appeared on Byzantine borders in great numbers. The Byzantine records note that grass wouldn't regrow in places where the Slavs had marched through. So great were their numbers. After military movements, even the Peloponnese and Asia Minor Turkey were reported to have Slavic settlements. By the end of the 6th century AD, Slavs had settled in the Eastern Alps region, right? And it says here Slavs or Slavic people are classified geographically and linguistically into West Slav and East Slav and Southern Slavic. Right. I gotta remember. I'm gonna jump down again. I believe that was it. All I wanted from there, and you can read you can read this for yourself. Now it goes into the Khazars, which again, the Khazars, it's not like it was just all the Edomites fled and became the Khazars. No, you just seen that you had Slavic people, which among them you have Israelites as well. That's the thing. Like this guy Jim Caviezel, who played so-called Jesus. You know, he's a Jake, man. But he's known as a Slavic. He's Croatian. You know, but you have certain people that, of course, mix with them, and Jake, like I said, took them on and intermixed with them, right? So it says here the Khazars were another ancient Turkic people. See, that's like a covering cast: Turkic, Khazar, this person, that person. These are all Edomites, right? Let's not get confused. Ancient Turkic people who first appeared in Transcaucasia, the transitional region between Europe and Asia, extending from the Greater Caucasus to the Turkish and Iranian borders, between the Black and Caspian Seas in the 2nd century AD, and subsequently settled in the lower Volga region. They emerged as a force in the 7th century and rose to great power. By the 8th century, the Khazar Empire extended from the northern shores of the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea to the Urals and as far westward as Kiev, which is in Ukraine. Also in the 8th century, the Khazars converted to the Hebrew religion and made Judaism the state religion. Right? It says, Itil, the Khazar capital in the Volga Delta, was a great commercial center. The Khazar Empire fell when Sviatoslav, Duke of Kiev, see, he had that surname Slav, but these were Israelites. He was a Duke of Kiev, right? From 945 to 972 AD, son of Igor and of Saint Olga, defeated its army in 965 AD. The Khazars are the progenitors of European Jewry. The etymology of the term Jew, I'm not going to say these certain terms. You can read that. Okay, let's go next. Now you have the Franks. I'm going to, I'm just skipping around in history. It's a little dense. If it's, right, Jake don't like to get into history, man. You got to get into the history. All right, this is the Franks, right? In the 560s, the Avars, a highly organized nomadic confederacy of mixed origin. They were ruled by a Kagan who was surrounded by a tight-knit entourage of nomad warriors, an organization characteristic of Turco-Mongol groups founded the Avar Kaganate, a state which maintained supremacy in the region for more than 2 centuries and had the military power to launch attacks against all its neighbors. The Avar Kagnate was weakened by constant wars and outside pressure, and the Black Franks under Charlemagne managed to defeat the Avars, ending their 250-year rule. In the middle of the 9th century, the Slavic Battalion Principality, also known as Lower Pannonia, was established by the Franks as a frontier outpost when they destroyed the Avar state in the western part of the Pannonian Plain. However, this vassal state was destroyed in 900 AD by Hungarian tribes. After the fall of the Great Hun and Avar nomadic empires, only the western and southern Slavic people, who had been settling in the area since the 6th and 7th centuries, succeeded in establishing themselves in the Carpathian Basin. I'm going to skip down. Let's see. Right. So it mentioned also, Salakia, the Charlemagne. Which Charlemagne, he was an Israelite. And he established something known as the Carolingian dynasty or kings, which that goes into I believe it's going to go into it here, but that goes into descendant of Charles the First, that he created a dynasty, like a lineage, Charlemagne, right? As you see here, this is Edith of England and Otto the First, Holy Roman Empire, married in 929 AD. So I'm going to read this part here. It says, in the first half of the 10th century, during the decades that followed the conquest, raiding expeditions of Magyar mounted warriors subjected all of Europe to a constant state of terror. In time, however, they began to feel the effects of Western counter-strategy. When the Magyars invaded Bavaria in 955, the armored cavalry of Otto the Great of the Black Holy Roman Emperor checked their advance, and in the decisive battle at Lechfeld, it annihilated the Magyar assailants. Although the Magyars launched further attack on Byzantium following this devastating defeat, it became clear that they had arrived at a decisive historic crossroad. Two alternatives confronted them. Either they settled down, form a state, form a state and adjust themselves to the people of Europe, or else the same fate would befall them as that of the other nomadic peoples who had been annihilated in previous centuries. Right, and then you go down here, Hungarian kings. You see a king down here. Right. Let's move on. The Crusades. Right. What was the Crusades about? So it says, albino history often implies that the Crusades were about freeing the Holy Lands from Arab Muslims. But historically, black empires never fought over religion. Everyone's religion was simply respected, and this case was no different. The Arabs captured Jerusalem in 638, and from then until the late 11th century, Christians had free and unfettered access to the holy places of Christendom. It says, rather, the Crusades were about black Christians being outraged by barbaric albino Turks being in control of the Holy Lands. In 1055, the last Arab Abbasid Caliph reigned. He was deposed by Seljuk Turk leader of Togrul Beg. After protracted negotiations ensuring restoration of the Caliph's dignity, Togrul Beg entered Baghdad in December 1055. The Arab Caliph enthroned him as Sultan, then retired, marrying a Seljuk princess. So that's some history, because again, the Turks, who were the Turks? Majority of them were Edomites. You had Ishmael and Elam and different mixtures, but majority, those were Edomites. Who was Vlad Tepes fighting? The Turks, man. Who was he impaling? Edomites. You know? You see a painting of Emperor Alexius the First. You know? It says, the First Crusade, Pope Urban II was responsible for assisting Emperor Alexius I of Constantinople in launching the First Crusade. He made one of the most influential speeches in the Middle Ages, calling on Christian princes in Europe to go on a crusade to rescue the Holy Land from the Turks. In the speech given at the Council of Clermont in France on November 22nd, 1095, he combined the ideas of making a pilgrimage to the Holy Land with that of waging a holy war against infidels. And it says, this is the quote, it says, the noble race of Franks must come to the aid of their fellow Christians in the East. The infidel Turks are advancing into the heart of Eastern Christendom. Christians are being oppressed and attacked. Churches and holy places are being defiled. Jerusalem is groaning under the Saracen yoke. The Holy Sepulchre is in Muslim hands and has been turned into a mosque. Pilgrims are harassed and even prevented from access to the Holy Land. The West must march to the defense of the East. All should go, rich and poor alike. The Franks must stop their internal wars and squabbles. Let them go instead against the infidel and fight a righteous war. God himself will lead them, for they will be doing his work. There will be absolution and remission of sins for all who die in the service of Christ. Here they are poor and miserable sinners. There they will be rich and happy. Let none hesitate. They must march next summer. God wills it. You know, and you see here Charles V of France returns the sword of the High Constable to Bertrand du Guesclin from the History du Guesclin after the poem by Cuvelier, early 15th century. Here you have a 1300s Frankish bronze seal of Guy Lord of Nucirelli, with wax impression consisting of a bust of a black man draped on neck and shoulders with text legend, right? More history. So here you have, hold on, let me see. Well, this is a Hungarian king, possibly Charles the First. Louis the First, the Great of Hungary. You see, they did a thing called iconoclasm, or image destruction, destroying of images, right? This is Holy Roman Emperor Leopold the First, House of Habsburg. The House of Habsburg, also known as the House of Austria, is one of the most important royal houses of Europe and is best known for being an origin of all of the formerly elected Holy Roman emperors between 1438 and 1740, as well as rulers of the Austrian Empire and Spanish Empire and several other countries. The house takes its name from Habsburg Castle, a fortress built around 1020 to 1030 in present-day Switzerland by Count Radbot of Gletgau, who chose to name his fortress Habsburg. These are all Jakes, man. These are all Israelites, right? So these are great things, and it's good to know and have confidence in that history when we say, oh, the Dark Ages. This is why I'm bringing this information out. It's a lot of dense material, but as you see, Holy Roman Emperor Leopold the First, all from 1640 1705, man. So that's why when we even tell brothers, look, there's certain places that Jake ruled from past the 1400s, man. Right? King James, the sixth of Scotland and the first of England. Right? That was the 1600s, the 1611 Bible. Who are these black royals on this currency? Right? Round version of Coburg, 1917. Right? Germany, Coburg. Start issue 1919. So this is a knight. This is a currency bill, right? A note from 1919, and they put a Israelite knight from the medieval times, right? This is Art Deco rendering of an unknown German knight. Location unknown. War year 1915. So this is World War One. A lot of history. They probably tore a lot of these things down. This is 1915, man. It's crazy. All right, this is ambassador from Kiev, which is again the capital of Ukraine, sent by King Vladimir and a Byzantine bishop before Byzantine Emperor Basil II, circa 987 AD. See? Now this is dealing with Russia and Ukraine. I'm gonna start. Let me see. Yeah, this is the history. A lot of the Mongolian. So I'm gonna read the last paragraph. The impact of the Mongol invasion on the territories of Kiev and Rus was uneven. The advanced city culture was almost completely destroyed, as older centers such as Kiev and Vladimir never recovered from the devastation of the initial attack. The new cities of Moscow, Tver, and Nizhny Novgorod began to compete with hegemony in the Mongol-dominated Russia. Although a Russian army defeated the Golden Horde at Kulikovo in 1380, Tatar domination of the Russian inhabited territories, along with demands of tribute from Russian princes, continued until about 1480. St. Peter, the metropolitan of Moscow and wonder worker of all Russia, died 1326. Alright. Now look at up here, Ivan III the Great In the 15th century, the Grand Princes of Muscovy went on gathering Russian lands to increase the population and wealth under their rule. The most successful practitioner of this process was Ivan III the Great, who laid the foundations for Russian national state. Right. We move down. So this is him right here, Tsar Ivan. This is actually the fourth, the terrible Ivan the Terrible. And I have another image of him, not on here, but you know. So it says down here, the development of the Tsar's autocratic powers reached a peak during the reign 1547 of Ivan IV, or Ivan the Terrible. He strengthened the position of the monarch to an unprecedented degree as he ruthlessly subordinated the nobles to his will, exiling or executing many on the slightest provocation. That sounds like a Jake. Nevertheless, Ivan was a far-sighted statesman who promulgated a new code of laws, reformed the morals of the clergy, and established the diplomatic and trade relations with the Low Countries and England. Although his son Livonian War, not his son, although his long Livonian War for the control of the Baltic coast ultimately proved a costly failure, Ivan managed to annex the Khanates of Kazan, Astrakhan, and Siberia. Through these conquests, Russia acquired a significant Muslim Tatar population and emerged as a multi-ethnic and confessional state. Also around this period, the mercantile Stroganov family established a firm foothold at the Urals and recruited Russian Cossacks to colonize Siberia. This is Fyodor I of Russia, aka Theodore, right? He was the last Rurikid Tsar of Russia, son of Ivan the Terrible and Anastasia Romanovna. He was born in Moscow and crowned Tsar and autocrat of all Russia in 1584. Right. Now here I mentioned the Cossacks, these people, right? These were warriors. You can go on YouTube and type in Cossack weapons or Cossack, swords or something, and you'll see them training today. And they show you the ancient ways, man, right? This is Vasily Yermak. Can't say that. Timofeyevich Alenin was a Cossack who led the Russian conquest of Siberia in the reign of Ivan the Terrible. Russia's fur interest fueled their desire to expand east into Siberia. This dude looks like a Moor Spaniard, man. It says Cossacks are a group of predominantly East Slavic speaking people. See, so does this dude look Slavic? That's what I'm saying, man. A lot of even the Slavic, you'll hear that and you'll say, yeah, that's a slave. Yes, but again, you had so much mixture, man. A lot of history, right? So the Cossacks, known as members of democratic, self-governing, semi-military communities predominantly located in Ukraine and Russia. They inhabited sparsely populated areas and islands in the lower Dnieper, Don, Terek, and Ural river basins, and played an important role in the historical and cultural development of both Russia and Ukraine. The origins of the first Cossacks are disputed, though the 1710 Constitution of Philip Orlik claimed Khazar origin, right? Now this is Yuri Khmelnytsky, I believe, Khmelnytsky, which is a younger son of the famous Ukrainian Hetman Bohdan Khmelnytsky. All these names, hold on. He was a Zaporozhian Cossack political and military leader. Even though he spent half of his adult life as a monk, he also was hetman of Ukraine on several occasions. So, again, does this dude look like a Slav? He's got, you know. I'm not gonna read this. Alright, but that was just going into the Khazars. I wanted to bring that out. Look at this. This is a painting of Tsar Alexis Mikhailovich of Russia, 1629. From icon depicting the cross of Key, a replica of the true cross. Alright, this is Nikon, born Nikita Minin, 1605. He was the son of Moldovan peasant farmer named Mikin. You know, portrait of Maria Ilyinina. Alright, 1625. She was the first wife of Tsar Alexis of Russia. Alright, so a lot of history, man. The Black Abkhazians, right, are a small group in Abkhazia of who used to live mainly in the Abkhazian settlement. You see here a black Abkhazian tribesmen circa 1800s. You know, just some more history that you may not know. Alright. Well, Jake is everywhere, man. You know, Jake is. That's why it says the four corners of the earth, man. You know, four corners of the earth, man. Look at this. A black Abkhazian family circa 1910 from the book Caucasus, Volume 1, The Peoples of Caucasus. That's crazy, man. Alright, so I hope you're edified. That's pretty much it. You know, here's some more icons. But, yeah, I hope you're edified. I want to say, Kal Halalim, La Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, Bahashem Rcha HaKodash, double honors to the apostles of GMS, who I learned this truth from, and Shalom to the elect, you Akim and few Akwathium that take heed in sincerity and in truth. Alright, Shalom.